All right, this is the Unit 2, Section 5 homework, and this is the last page. You should be excited. This is number 35 through 44. So again, we are still solving for the zeros of each function, algebraically, so now we don't have a graph. And we're just going to do the same two steps as we always have. All right, so I'm just going to start with number 35. So 35, again, we start off with, we change y to 0, and everything else stays, and then we solve for x. So in this one, I put this one on here on purpose. I don't have any number to move, so I simply just divide by my fraction, okay? And hopefully it's in focus. It's almost like you took your glasses off because now it's blurry again. I don't understand. Anyways, so I don't have a number to move, so I just need to divide by my fraction. Now you can always do this in the calculator, but with fractions I like to do these by hand. So when you divide by a fraction, you actually just multiply and flip the fraction. Okay? That's really what you're doing. And of course, 3/4 times 0 is still 0. Okay, so we know x is 0, and since these are zeros of functions, the y is always 0. So I, just like before, I do 0, 0. And that's my answer. And that's it for that one. Okay, let's do one with a little more excitement. Okay, so the rest of these have numbers. I just put that one on there first on purpose, that we kind of have an easy start to fractions. But 36, so again, I change f of x to 0, because again, f of x is y, so no matter what, I change it to 0. Okay, and now I want to solve for x. So I do the same two steps as I have been doing on the page before. I move my number, divide by my coefficient. So my number is plus 2, so to move it, I do minus 2. Okay. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Sorry, bring down the 1/3 x. Okay. And to get x, you divide by the coefficient. But when I divide by a fraction, I multiply and flip the fraction. Okay. So fractions flip, that's the way I always think of that. So now I just multiply. So I have 3 times negative 2. Well, I can do it the other way. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Divided by 1 is just negative 6. Okay, so you start with the whole number, multiply by the top, divide by the bottom, and then you don't need a calculator. So because x is negative 6, my answer is negative 6, 0. And I'm done. On to the next one. 37. Okay. 37. I change y to 0. Okay. And move my number, divide by coefficient. My number becomes plus 4 because I don't want it anymore. Okay. 0 plus 4 is 4. Bring down my 3/4 x, and I want to divide by my coefficient. Now, my coefficient is a fraction, so instead of dividing, I'm going to multiply and flip, because fractions flip when you divide. So now I do 4 times 4 is 16. 16 divided by 3 I cannot do, so I just have 16 divided by 3 equals x. And I write my answer as parentheses 16/3, 0, because it's always x, 0 when we're finding zeros of functions. And that would be all for that one. Okay, so yeah, you can type that in and get a decimal. I'm going to say for the most part, you probably will never have a decimal answer unless it's 0.5, something like that. So other than that, you can just leave them all as fractions. I leave everything as fractions because they're more exact anyways, especially for that one. It's a repeating decimal, which is annoying anyways, because who wants to hear something repeat forever and ever? I don't. So I'm just going to leave it as a fraction, and then we're done. All right, 38. F of x changed to 0. And then I move my number, divide by coefficient. So again, same 2 steps. So plus 4 becomes minus 4. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. Bring down my negative 2/5 x. And I divide by my coefficient. And again, I'm dividing by a fraction, so instead I'm going to multiply and flip. Okay, that gets rid of this. So I start with the whole number, negative 4 times the top, negative 5. Negative 4 times negative 5 is a positive 20. 20 divided by 2 is 10. Pretty easy. Now that I have x, my answer becomes 10, 0. And that's it. And we're done, and we can go to the next question. Yeah, we're almost halfway there. 39. 39? Yeah. Okay, I have y, because I'm solving for my zeros. I change y to 0. Okay, everything else stays. And then I do my same 2 steps that I've been doing. Move the number, divide by the coefficient. All right, now, because it's minus 3, to move it we do plus, because you always do the opposite. Because the whole point of moving something really is just to make it 0, because I don't want it there anymore. So I have 0 plus 3 over here is 3. Bring down my negative 6/5x. And my last step is to divide by coefficient. My coefficient is a fraction, so when I divide, I'm going to multiply and flip, because fractions flip when you divide. Now, start with the whole number. 3 times the top, divide by the bottom. So 3 times 5, negative 5, is negative 15. Negative 15 over 6, that doesn't divide out. But if I write it out like that, I can reduce, right? They both divide by 5. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the answer. Divide by 3. So if I divide both by 3, you get 5/2 equals x, and that looks like a z. Sorry. Okay. So and for this question, I have parentheses, negative 5/2, 0. And I am done. So yeah, your fractions don't always divide to a nice whole number, but if not, sometimes they reduce, sometimes they don't. It just depends on the fraction. That one did. Okay, 40. Change f of x to 0. Everything else stays the same. Move my number, so plus 2, because I want it to be 0 over here, or go away. 0 plus 2 is 2, and bring down my 7/3x. Divide by my coefficient, which is a fraction. So when you divide by fractions, they flip. So you multiply and flip them. Okay, oh no, there we go. And start with the whole number, multiply by the top, divide by the bottom. That's pretty easy. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 divided by 7 does not divide nice and neat, so we're going to leave it as a fraction. So because x equals 6/7, my answer becomes 6/7, 0. And I'm done. Now we just have to do the same thing 4 more times, and we're good. Got enough practice. Hopefully you understand this a lot better after doing all this practice. If not, I can give you a lot more. It's okay, just ask. Okay, so on 41, change y to 0. Everything else stays the same. Okay, move my number, so plus 2 becomes minus 2. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Bring down my negative 1/2, x. Don't forget the x. And divide by my coefficient. My coefficient's a fraction, so when we divide by fractions, we multiply and flip the fraction. There we go. There's a negative. So when we multiply a fraction and a whole number, start with the whole number, multiply by the top, divide by the bottom. So negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. 4 over 1 is simply just 4. Okay, so if x equals 4, our answer is 4, 0. And we're done. 42. F of x becomes 0. Everything else is the same, just like the steps in this problem. Move the number plus 3 on both sides. 0 plus 3 is 3. Bring down my x. Okay. Divide by coefficient, which is a fraction, so I'm going to multiply and flip, because fractions flip when you divide. All right. Starting with the whole number, 3 times the top, 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. 15 over 6 does not reduce, but we just did that one. So 15 over 6 is 5 over 2. And this one's positive because I don't have any negatives, I'm multiplying. Okay. So if x is 5 over 2, my answer is 5 over 2, 0. And I'm done. La-di-da. On to the next one. Oh, we got 2 left. We're almost done. I know. So you see fractions, and hopefully you aren't so afraid of them anymore. Okay. So y becomes 0. Everything else is the exact same. Okay. Move my number. So minus 2. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Bring down my x. And divide by my coefficient, which is a fraction. So instead of dividing, I'm going to multiply and flip. Oops. Flip the fraction, because fractions flip when you divide. I'm going to just say that a bunch all year. Okay. So multiplying, negative 2 times negative 5 is 10, positive 10. 10 over 1 is just 10. Okay. So if x is 10, my answer is 10, 0. And that's it. And I have my final and last question. 44. F of x becomes 0. Yeah. Yeah, it does. All the way down to 0. Everything else stays the same because we can't change it yet. All right, move my number. So that plus 5 is now minus 5. He had a bad day, so he's negative. 0 minus 5. Bring down my 8 over 3x. Negative, right? Okay, and divide by my coefficient. That is an x. So divide by a fraction, you multiply, and you flip the fraction. There we go. And see, so this is why I use different colors, because I know the blue has something to do with the orange. That is orange. Yeah, okay. So I start with the whole number, multiply the top, divide the bottom if I can. So negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. And 15 over 8, I cannot divide that. And I cannot reduce that, so that is my x. Therefore, my answer is 15 over 8, 0. And I'm done. And I am not going to close that box, so get mad all you want. That would be the end of this homework. Hopefully this has helped if you watch the entire thing. As you can see, I do the same 2 steps every time. I move my number if I have one, and then I divide by my coefficient. And if it's a fraction and you divide, fractions flip and you multiply. Okay? Then you do whole number times the top of the fraction divided by the bottom. Reduce if you can. Bada boom, bada bing. We're done with this homework, which means this video is now over.